Hey, Brace.
Hello, Liz.
Wait, I have a question.
Yes.
How many times have you been arrested?
Well, okay, that's giving the game away a little bit. We met in jail.
That's not true.
The famous co-ed jail in San Francisco.
Oh, my God.
I've been arrested like 4 or 5 times. Yes. One, theft, which is the fault of Max. If you're listening to this, it is your fault that that happened. Twice for assault and battery, although all the charges, by the way, dropped in all of these, except for some of them. Once for vandalism when I was a kid, and destruction of property and stuff like that, and then once for possession of meth, amphetamine. And I gotta tell you, something about jail. I've said this before on the show. Nicest thing anyone ever did to me was they baby birded some liquid Vicodin into my mouth. But I had heard about the fight clubs at the San Francisco jail that the sheriffs did. And I was like, oh my God, like, what if they make me fight in one of them? And then when I got in there, I was
They're
like,
not going to make you fight.
I don't think there's a chance. Maybe they'll do a read off with me.
Well,
or something
skinny
like
punk
that.
kid. They're going to be like, oh, yeah, let's get this one in there.
Yeah, I weighed probably at 90 pounds going in that time.
They'd be like, oh, I'm going to make the other guy that I'm fighting by proxy take on Brace.
But
on
yeah,
his
every
team.
time-
It's
every
like
time-
reverse dodgeball thinking.
Every time I go in, I always try to find the Jewish gang and get with them. And so I just go around asking everyone if they're Jewish or looking at their penis to see if they're circumcised. And
that makes you some different new friends.
It's crazy. I am one of them. I would say probably the most multiracial jail boss in America at this point. And I'd like to say all my friends in there, L'chaim.
Jeffrey Epstein. Jeffrey Epstein. Jeffrey Epstein. Jeffrey Epstein. Come in. Jeffrey Epstein.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
I'm Liz.
My name is Brace. Sleepy Brace.
Are you sleepy, Brace?
I'm sleepy, Brace. I didn't
Why
sleep
are you
well.
sleepy?
Had a long 24 hours and was stressed out this morning. I had to wake up and deal with bureaucrats.
Oh my God, your favorite.
You know, Liz B. knowing I hate bureaucrats.
You really do.
I fucking hate.
You know what though? You're not wrong.
I'm not wrong.
They're
you know who is
awful.
wrong?
Little paper
They are
pushers.
wrong. They are wrong.
Yeah, they're
Remember the
always
smudge
wrong.
incident? Oh my God.
Oh my God. Don't get me started on the smudge.
Don't get me started on the smudge. We're of course joined by producer Young Chomsky. And
This is called TrueAnon. Hello.
there we go. Yeah. Liz, you don't have to be doing a lot of that today because
He's sleepy.
I'm running probably about
You should
10.
stop wearing your sleeping dressing gown
okay.
to
Listen,
the studio.
it's menswear. All right. Yes, I am wearing a silk striped light blue.
It's actually like Japanese shibori print, block print,
That's
and like indigo
Yes.
menswear style.
I am also visibly wearing a tight red underwear, not boxers. I guess you would call them briefs. And of course, I am wearing a kimono, unleashed.
Oh my God.
And of course, a big sleepy time hat as
Yes.
well.
Always the sleepy time hat.
No. I wear crazy shit to bed. I wear pretty much all denim to bed, just in case there's a fire.
Yeah. And you got to wake yourself up with how loud you are.
Oh God, yeah, and how itchy I am.
Just constantly trying to break in that raw denim.
My Japanese selvage denim.
You should stop sleeping in raw denim sheets.
What the fuck is raw denim? I'm not trying to wear no raw denim. Process it. Make it
Yeah,
soft
pasteurize
for me.
it.
I'm not understand. Denim people are crazy to me. I am wearing denim. We are talking today,
About our favorite,
the police.
our favorite topic.
And I got to tell you, to preface this episode off, I'm sure many of you remember a couple of years ago. Actually, maybe you don't because the whole year was a blur. But do you remember the I don't know how to pronounce this word, halcyon? Am I doing that right? Mm-hmm. Young Chomsky gave it a snort, but I was right. So,
No, that was a nod.
but you snorted while you nodded.
It was a snort of agreement.
Okay, I'd preferred if you retracted the snort by inhaling. Back to the halcyon days of 2020 when everybody hated the police. Do you remember that, Liz?
Oh, yeah.
People hated them.
I mean, with good reason.
Yeah, cops, we don't like them.
No.
But things began to change, and I think sort of the public perception of the police among liberals, I don't think it really changed much for conservatives, but among liberals has sort of retreated back into, well, it's just a few bad apples in the bunch,
Right.
et cetera.
Maybe we should hear both sides.
Exactly. Like the sort of popular anger against police has definitely receded in general.
Right.
And so it's sort of unusual to have. I think something that struck me about this is there was a big. Well, I don't know, big in terms of people, although there was a number of people there. But there was a riot, I would say, in Atlanta the other day.
Yeah, over the weekend.
Yeah.
Last weekend. Though, I mean, I think that the news covered it a little bit more fantastically than
Absolutely.
what was actually happening on the ground. There was a lot of footage of one burned cop car that I think gave the impression that there were other buildings on fire. It was
Yeah.
at night, so it was like a lot more insane looking. And I think was being put on the, on the nightly news in such a way to recall memories of the summer of 2020.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it was sort of like a flashback for a lot of people. Like, oh yeah, remember when like people did that in general? And so
Yeah.
it was sort of I don't know. It was it just struck with me. And you saw a lot of the old narratives trotted out, like Antifa is taking over downtown Seattle, or excuse me, downtown Atlanta, and all of these kind of things. Although that kind of died down. But people were protesting because someone was killed.
Yeah, so let's back up a little bit. So over the weekend, like you said, there was a riot in Atlanta. Broken windows, classic move at police headquarters. There was the cruiser set on fire. There was like a bunch of banks that I think had their windows smashed in, kind of the usual stuff. And it was in response to the killing of a 26-year-old environmental protester named Manuel Esteban Paez Terran, a.k.a. Tortugita.
Tortugita, yeah,
Tortugita.
which is it took me a little practice to get that right.
They're from Panama City, Panama. So they're actually not from Atlanta, but they've been in the Atlanta area for, I don't know, more than a year. I
About a
think.
year, yeah, as far as I know.
And they were in Atlanta protesting the proposed gigantor $90 million police training facility that has been nicknamed, but really I think should be the official name, Cop City.
Yeah, and I got to tell you, shout out to whoever came up with that.
What
because
a name.
What a name.
What a name.
The actual name that the police have given it is the Institute for Social Justice.
Which is a funny thing because now we've got a little flipsies, right?
Exactly.
Because
We've got full flipsies here.
You got a full flipsies because on the one hand you'd think activists theoretically would love an Institute for Social Justice.
Yeah. I don't know
But-
about these activists, but yeah.
No, but the name,
yes.
in broad, vague terms.
Absolutely.
Institute for Social Justice sounds like where activists hang
I
out.
love it.
Cop City, definitely a place police would want.
Exactly.
So we've got a full reverso here.
We got a full reverso here. Yeah, I will say it is a sort of astounding project that they're working on there. They are literally making a city for the police in the woods, a mock city to train in, which we'll get to in a little bit. I think we should actually start maybe with what happened in broad strokes, what happened on the day that Tortugita was shot and that set off these protests over the weekend.
Yeah, for sure.
So as far as we know, and this is from obviously the popular reporting, but we've also spoken to people who were there, who were living there, and who were there that day. The police were basically doing a sweep, and they had done one about a month prior in mid-December.
Hold on. Just to clarify, they're doing a sweep of the area where activists have been kind of camped out.
Yeah.
In protest of the building of this facility on basically I believe it's like 200, 300 acre.
Almost 400, actually.
Well, there you go. 200, 300, 400, around that area.
Yeah.
Acre forest.
Yes.
Just outside of Atlanta.
One of the biggest urban forests in America. And in fact, I asked this question. I was like, how come it's not the biggest one? Apparently Jacksonville, the city limits of Jacksonville
No way.
are too big right? They like got a little too big for their britches. Maybe they're planning on a bigger city. And so Jacksonville, even outside of where you would consider the city, it's still technically Jacksonville, and they got a big ass forest there, but like that doesn't count. This is an actual urban forest surrounded by neighborhoods.
Their football team also getting a little too big for their britches.
Who is that?
Don't worry about it.
Okay, I won't. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And we'll get into the timeline there too a little bit about how that went down. But basically, the broad strokes of what happened, recently is that the police went in there on a big multi-agency, like really like sweep and clear campaign. Like we're getting these protesters out of there. These people have been living, some of them in trees, some of them have been living in tents in the ground, some of them, but people living in the forest essentially, blockading any kind of construction.
And when you say multi-agency, we're talking local cops, state cops, and now it sounds like federal cops.
Yeah. Oh, definitely they're getting involved, I'm sure. But yeah, Georgia Bureau of Investigation, fucking, the Georgia State Patrol, I think they're called. And of course, local police forces and the sheriff and all that. The official story is, and we don't have a ton to go on besides this. The official story is that the police went in there. They approached what was they said was a tent, and a cop approached that and was met with gunfire. This is what the police say. Was wounded. The police returned fire on the tent and killed the person, Tortugita, that was in there, and basically swept a bunch of other people out of the camp. They didn't get everybody out of the forest. They got a bunch of people out there that day. And then this set off a sort of chain reaction of protests and things like that. I will say originally it looked like the police, the way this was reported in the New York Times, for instance, was there was a firefight between protesters and the police.
Really?
Yes. That's what they use. The word they use in the headline is firefight.
Yeah, the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, which we'll talk about too, which I also got to say, they have one of the worst paywalls of all the local papers.
SF Chronicle too, same thing.
I know. The SF Chronicle one is
SF
really
Chronicle paywall. Give me one fucking free article.
LA Times gives you a couple free, I think.
Yeah.
But anyway, Atlanta Journal-Constitution all over this saying that it was, that there was basically a shootout in the forest.
I don't know what the official definition of a firefight is, right? It's kind of one of those things where it's like, it when you see it. I don't think that this would, by any popular definition of the word, qualify as a firefight. And I also, looking up a picture of Tortugita's tent too. I mean, you hear the word tent and you expect sort of like a structure on the ground, maybe a zip-up cover, a tent, right?
Yeah, pitched.
Exactly, a pitched tent. What the Georgia Bureau of Investigation is calling a tent was actually, and I'm looking at a picture of it right now, a hammock strung between two sort of sad-looking trees with a small tarp covering it from rainfall.
Yeah.
So not a tent. And also, I think the word tent is meant to, give you the impression, it certainly gave me the impression that it would prevent the officers from seeing
No, you can
whoever's
see
in
right
there.
through this thing because it's just a little tarp
All
covering
angles.
a hammock.
You could literally see, this does not block any view of the person at all.
No, I think the idea of a shootout from a tent gives you, this is the image you see.
Yeah.
Tortugita is there, completely covered, shielded by the tent.
Yeah.
And able to conceal themselves and hide themselves from the police ever returning any fire.
Absolutely. And in fact, that is how the GBI, Georgia Bureau of Investigation, at first presented this as happening as a sort of ambush attack on officers, which they later walked back into a surprise attack on officers, and then later walked back further by just being like, oh, it was fire from a tent. This is, of course, also set off sort of a nationwide campaign, a clandestine campaign, I guess you could say, against people who are involved, contractors, subcontractors, and corporations involved with the construction of Cop City. We'll get into who those are in a second. But yeah, it's suffice to say, it has actually gotten a lot more attention on this campaign than I think there had been by any means prior. It's now a pretty big national story. And it's a pretty interesting story about how this kind of all came to be.
We should say, too, I just want to say that, Tortugita's mom, who is in Panama City, does not believe that, does not believe the official story and believes that the cops just shot and killed Tortugita.
It is
Like without there being fire, like, you know.
well,
returned.
having spoken to people that know Tortugita and having read a piece that came out about a month ago with quotes from Tortugita, it was interesting because one thing that you hear consistently is Tortugita, expressing discomfort against violence towards people.
Yeah.
Right. In fact, I believe that I don't have the quote in front of me right now, but I think the magazine's called like Thistle or something. Tortugita gives a quote to this person profiling people at the camp about a commitment to nonviolence. And it does, obviously we don't know what happened right there. There aren't any witnesses that have come forward yet, although there is an independent investigation looking for them. It is interesting that, Tortugita was apparently killed where the shooting happened. It took the police 36 hours to produce images of a weapon, which is a lot longer. They put out images of the tent and all that stuff long prior to that. And, I don't know what happened here. I don't know if it's friendly fire.
Yeah, I mean that's a question for
Yeah.
sure. One question I would have is you got a bunch of different agencies coming in
Oh,
at all
yeah.
different directions. You got a lot of happy cops of all stripes.
Mm-hmm.
Perhaps someone got caught in the middle.
I mean, yeah, we don't know, but again, these cops are basically conducting a forest-based counterinsurgency campaign right here, right?
Yeah.
And so they're soldiers essentially at this moment, and something that does happen is there's a lot of confusion in those situations. Sometimes you see something, maybe you see someone with a gun, maybe you shoot, and maybe that person with a gun is on your side. And fires return. It's sometimes these can be rather hairy situations. The GBI, who was involved with that raid in the first place, is now investigating it. So it's sort of the police are now investigating themselves.
That always goes well.
Always goes well. And
Always a great way to find out what happened.
Exactly. And so we know, and I was actually waiting for the police to be like, well, maybe with better training, this wouldn't have happened.
I'm surprised they didn't pivot to that.
I know. I'm actually shocked that they haven't.
But you know
pivoted to
what? We are going to pivot to that because we should go back to the beginning and talk a little bit about this place,
Yeah.
Cop City.
So Atlanta, right? Have you ever been there, Liz?
Hotlanta?
Hotlanta.
I have not.
Really?
No.
Interesting.
Shout out to Jordan. What's that?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Shout out to Jordan. And, shout out. Well, we don't need to get into certain facilities there.
Do you got hoes in different area codes?
Well, I'm just saying that there's
That's
a lot
little
of really
reference to my homies
talented
in Atlanta.
dancers there. But I've been to Atlanta a few times. Love Atlanta. It's a great city. Shout out to Anthony. And Atlanta is also a place where they film a lot of movies now.
They do.
They do.
Marvel.
Is that where that happens? Isn't
I
that
don't know
like
why I
kind of a
just said it
green
like that,
screen
but
thing?
they have huge.
Can we clip that woman saying Marvel like that? Put that in the back
No,
pocket.
there's a ton of like huge. I think they shot a lot of Marvel movies there.
Really?
Yeah.
I would assume
Huge
those were
sound
kind of just
stages.
a computer thing, but yeah, I guess that makes sense. A sound stage.
Yeah.
But there's cheap. That's the thing. It's like it's the same reason they shoot in like Canada and stuff. There's cheaper labor, and like I'm sure that there's insane
breaks.
tax breaks and stuff like that. I haven't looked into the tax breaks aspect, but I know Hollywood. I know my people. There's tax breaks. So lots of studios have moved there recently, including, well, this wasn't exactly recent, but a studio that does have a lot there was Blackhall Studios.
Yes.
And they owned a parcel of land in what is called the Atlanta Forest. And the city of Atlanta went to them and was like, let's make a deal. We'll give you some publicly owned land if you give us this lot so we can make Cop City.
Yeah. Little switcheroo.
Little switcheroo. This happened in, I believe, early 2021. So the Atlanta Forest, like we were saying, is a pretty big area. Big urban forest, and there'd actually been some plans prior, including plans drawn up for the city to make it into sort of like a wildlife sanctuary, like an urban green space, basically.
Yeah, so you mentioned that it's a big forest. It's a large forest. It actually has like the highest percentage of what you'd call like urban tree canopy in the U.S., which makes it very valuable, not just as like for our lovely lungs and creating good clean air, but also like for developers.
Yeah.
This is like a very rich and dense forest, and it's been fought over by developers for decades and decades and decades. The South River Forest, which is its name, was designated basically by Atlanta like one of the city's lungs. And back in 2017,
Yeah.
the city planning department had basically they put a proposal forward to turn most of the park into a huge conservation corridor. And they got the city council to adopt that plan,
Yeah.
which I think they themselves were shocked by because, I mean, no offense, but I think city planners, they don't think that their conservation plans are going to, they're
Yeah.
you know, good-hearted people that are always used to the stinky bureaucrats getting in their way.
You know how to appeal to me. Yeah,
Yeah.
I hate bureaucrats.
Yeah. So the city council got that. They agreed to adopt the plan, and 200 acres were basically approved for permanent preservation. But then something strange happened. Remember Keisha Lance Bottoms?
That was a name I hadn't heard in a long time prior to doing the notes for this episode. And I got to tell you, one of the craziest last names any human being has ever been given.
Especially when you go into politics. It's one of those things where you think, maybe change the name.
You got a hyphen in there. Here's my thing, baby.
So you always go by Lance Bottoms?
You got no. There is a hyphen for Lance Bottoms.
Oh, there
right?
is?
Yes.
Oh, I don't have it in here.
Yeah, you're right. You wrote it unhyphenated, but you know what? There is a hyphen. My thing is,
So it's not Mayor Bottoms?
you don't have to go by. If you got a hyphenated last name, here's the thing: in one of those ones is Bottoms, you can drop that one. Just
I
go
don't
by
know if you
Keisha.
can do
Keisha Lance is a good name.
Yes.
That's a good mayor name. Lance Bottoms. Imagine I roll up to the studio and was like, guys, my name is Brace Bottoms. That'd be fucking insane. Your name is Mayor Ass. Your mayor is Mayor Lance Ass. And so I remember reading her name back in 2020.
Brace Bottoms.
Brace Bottoms. I remember, that's what they used to call me at least. In jail. And it's sort of a verb too. Lance Bottoms always reminded me of somebody lancing lancing a cyst on their ass. That's always what came to my mind.
Well, you're Mr. Boyles.
Mr. Boyles, that's true. Susan Boyles, they call me. But that's so. Whenever she was, giving this speech in 2020 about, the people are being mean to CNN in front of the headquarters or whatever.
Oh, right.
That's what it always reminded me of.
Anyway, the lovely urban planners in the city planning department who were like, we're going to make this a conservation corridor and it's going to be a great park for everyone to enjoy. Wrong-o, because Mayor Bottoms came in, swung her big ass around and was like, no way, we're going to make a huge university for cops.
And this was still secret, right? Basically
Yes.
until 2021. They're drawing up the plans. They're and the plans are, by the way, outrageous. I've seen them. They're insane. It literally has pictures of a school bus dropping off police to a big campus. It looks like the place where it looks like a community college for cops.
Yeah.
But in April of 2021, some activists, and this is, who knows how they did it, but they basically discovered that these plans were in the works.
Yes.
Through either a leak or, something happened, but they figured out that this was going to happen. There are actually excavators and stuff being taken there. They're really setting up. This is before city council even votes on it. But they're already setting up construction equipment. Some of that construction
Throughout the forest.
Throughout the forest, the excavators and all that kind of stuff, Fern Gully shit. And some of those things, unfortunately, spontaneously combust, and about 7 excavators are destroyed.
You're saying a bunch of machinery was destroyed.
Fern Gully style. A bunch
Okay.
of forest animals came together and destroyed a bunch of machinery.
Sure.
But yeah, a bunch of machinery is destroyed, and there's some signs that there will be some resistance to destroying large portions of this forest to put a police training academy in.
Right.
There's also a communique that comes out called Whistling in the Forest that says that trees are being spiked, that there will be resistance to these sort of things. And then there starts to be this sort of campaign at farmers markets, et cetera, people handing out flyers being like, hey, did you know that they're planning on doing this big cop city and they haven't really even announced it yet. And in that June, city council member Joyce Shepard, which sounds like a video game character name, introduces legislation to build Cop City. So basically she's like, all right, city council, we're going to vote on it. We're going to make it official.
Yeah.
Most of the activism at this point is like dedicated to like swaying votes and being, it's the typical thing. Like, people don't want, you're trying to pressure your city council member to basically take, to vote no on this.
Yeah. And usually, when something like this comes up to city council, now you have some experience dealing with, city council members of a different name, we'll say.
Yes,
and
supervisors,
they're called, supervisors in San Francisco. But usually when big plans are put forth like this, there's a lot of, much to the chagrin of politicos, because they hate the public, but there's usually a period of robust debate where the public can come in and comment.
Yeah.
And can say actually how they feel about it, and can try and sway a little bit some of these council members. They only allowed 17 hours of public comment.
Yeah.
For the Cop City, before the Cop City vote.
And hold your horses there, foreigners, because I know some guy in Germany is like, 17 hours, that sounds like so long. Let me tell you ever been to a public comment on something? 17 hours is fucking nothing. That's nothing. You could sometimes in the redistricting in San Francisco, days.
Sheila can go for just 17 hours.
Yeah, there's people who all they do is public comment. And so once you get those people out of the way and have actual regular people in there publicly commenting, I mean, listen, a lot of those public comments, in fact, I would say it was something like 70% were against Cop City.
Yeah, 70% were negative. And they came from over 1,100 individual Atlanta residents.
Joyce Shepard said, listen, I'm voting yes on this no matter fucking what. This is my bill. I don't care if my constituents are against this. She is no longer in office. And it ends up passing in September on a 10-4 vote.
Yeah.
So there's 4 against, 10-4.
We got to say this was supported heavily by Ms. Mayor Bottoms.
Oh, yeah. So, I mean, all right. Again, this is happening in September of 2021. Recall 2020, right? Big protests, George Floyd murals everywhere. Everyone's, we're going to defund the police and all this stuff. This led a lot of mayors to making promises that in retrospect, and frankly at the time also seemed absurd, right? Mm-hmm. So anytime we ever read or we do a story on anywhere that has a Democrat mayor, is if you look back to a statement they would have made in June 2020, all of them say that they're pledging to defund the police.
Right.
Mayor Kesha Lance Bottoms, no different. Not only was she going to defund the police, they were going to close the jail. You know what? I don't even have to look at the notes for this. Didn't fucking happen.
No.
Not only did they increase the police budget by 15% that very month, the jail is, of course, 3 years later, still not closed, but they did say that they're on their way to closing it by adding a diversion program to the ground floor, which diversion programs are present in many jails. So I'm not sure why that is. You're still going to jail. Anyways, after that happens, the vote loses. A bunch of people are like, well, fuck, I don't know what to do next.
Now, one thing I want to mention to you is that, technically, where Cop City will be is actually in unincorporated DeKalb County.
Yeah.
Which is a very small county, which means it's not within Atlanta city limits, but because of the quirk of the law, and because they're unincorporated, they don't actually get any say in the development.
Yeah.
So the development wasn't actually subject to any local approval by anyone in DeKalb County.
Yeah, I know. That's the kind of funny little loophole about it. Unincorporated areas are so weird. I don't understand how that works.
It's total bullshit.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's a poor county that's 70% black. I mean, it's just total bullshit. They don't have any representation.
From what I understand is that around the forest too. I mean, because this is this is an area that's actually has a bunch of people living around it, like we were saying.
Yeah.
There's poor black neighborhoods, poor white neighborhoods, but it's mostly just poor neighborhoods except for one section, I think.
Yeah, and because like this is how this is all structured, and because of this like odd quirk in local law, like the residents of the county that this is in actually have no legal recourse to stop this.
It's pretty absurd.
Yeah.
I mean, there are people who are putting up a lot of roadblocks because anybody involved in city politics knows that you can actually get things delayed. That's one thing that you can do as an activist is delay things a lot of the time. Anyway, so it's going to go ahead, and this sort of starts phase 2 of kind of the campaign against Cop City.
Yeah. Protesters had basically been demonstrating against all of this development. I mean, I'd say since like June, July of 2021. The members of the Atlanta Forest Movement kind of start also getting involved. And they start building tree houses. They start climbing trees. They're building
structures
encampments to stop developers from coming in and cutting down the forest to make way for the what was it called? The Diversity Center? What is it?
It's the Institute for Social Justice, Liz. Jesus fucking Christ. You and I went there. We went to the
alma mater.
We went to the Memphis branch. And they start spiking trees too. And for those of you, and that's why like you and I were talking about this a few days ago, a lot of the environmental activism in this really brings back a lot of sort of stuff. I'm not going to say memories because I wasn't there, but like a historical memory of like the 80s and 90s and sort of late 70s and that sort of heyday of really like boots on the ground, like hardcore environmental activism. Because there wasn't really a green movement back then. There was like people, there was like environmentalists, and then there was like ELF,
right,
kind of people.
I mean, I think in the past couple of decade or so, you've seen more and more of this, right?
Yeah.
We've had obviously Standing Rock, Line 3. There was the Bay Bridge actions, so there's been more of this kind of occupation led or like occupation type.
Like
protests
actions and stuff like
that's
that.
been happening. Yeah, I mean, there was also the ZOD protests in France that were pretty big with the encampments. And actually, there was a kid who was killed.
Yeah,
it was a huge scandal. I was telling you about it the other day. He was like one of the French. They of course the gendarmerie. They use those fucking shrapnel grenades. And one was thrown and got caught in his hoodie. Yeah. And I'm just going to end it there. And, protests erupted all throughout France. This is during the Hollande presidency. But
but something that I've always known and sort of grown up knowing is that, like, there's a certain hardcore of environmental activists that are, like, guys you do not mess with. You know what I mean? Like people who will like go do stuff that like there is almost no of their equivalent in like American activism or whatever. And tree spiking is a part of that. I mean, tree spiking is where you put either like some piece of metal or some ceramic or something like that into a tree, basically at the level that it would be cut down in. Mm-hmm. And the intention there isn't to injure somebody cutting it down. The intent there is to basically put up a sign and be like, these trees are basically mined. You can't cut these motherfuckers down. Yeah. Because when you cut them down, like there's a chance that it will fuck up your saw or fuck you up. And then, okay, even if you do get it down and you're sending it to the sawmill, like that will fuck up the operation there because it'll hit a piece of metal. You're putting yourself in trees. I think there was something like this in the Pacific Northwest actually a couple of years ago too. But like, people chain themselves to trees and stuff like that. That wasn't what was happening here, the chaining. But like, environmental, that sort of that tendency of environmental action was a really big deal to the FBI too.
Yeah, for sure.
And those people famously, yeah. And like those people were sort of really branded as like these are like actual domestic terrorists and all that sort of things. There was raids on a lot of makeup facilities too, a lot of animal testing facilities.
Absolutely.
I guess that would be the ALF.
But the freeing of bunnies.
Exactly. I know, which is what a noble type of terrorism, right? Getting those little guys out of there. Yeah. So, like you were saying, people move into the forest, right?
Yeah.
And so they've got that kind of base of operations there, but then they really start kind of going after the contractors that are involved in all this. Because something to keep in mind is like the cops, I mean, they're cops. Like they can't dig a hole and like put a stake in. You know what I mean? Like they obviously are contracting these services out.
Right.
And one of the big ones was called Reeves Young. And after about 5 actions, including going to the CEO's house and all that kind of stuff, Reeves Young actually drops out of the project. And they're like, you know what? This is too much to deal with. We don't want to fuck with this anymore. Too much of a headache. And this sets into motion a lot of stuff. You know, the movement grows a lot at this point, and they start going after subcontractors, trying to get them to drop off, you know, convincing them through various means. And eventually a new construction company called Brassfield and Gorey comes in. They're less easily cowed. But, you know, the board of directors, docs, and all that kind of stuff. And at this point, cops are escorting in construction workers. And so this is really sort of reminiscent of like Iraq or something like that. You know what I mean? Like armed patrols basically with construction workers.
Right.
And when those armed patrols would come in the forest, people would basically would ambush the police during those. They would throw rocks at them and shoot fireworks off at them. And then when the police would come in without construction workers, just as like to do patrols, to like, you know, basically arrest people or snatch people, they didn't end up, there was no ambush or anything like that. People would just like hang back. And all construction essentially stops. But at the same time, the people who are actually building Cop City, the organization behind it, really starts ramping up this sort of propaganda campaign. So can you tell me about the people who are building Cop City?
Well, one of the big shadowy nonprofits, we'll say, that we know that's really behind pushing this is the Atlanta Police Foundation, which was established in 2003 and is basically, you know, backed and funded by, I would say, a who's who of Georgia corporate power. So you've got UPS, Home Depot, Equifax, Delta, of course, Bank of America. I think the CEO of Waffle House is on there too.
He is, or she is. They are.
Yeah. I mean, it's just, you know, there's a lot of corporate power in Georgia itself, right?
Yeah.
It seems like it is just one of many different nonprofits that are shells of other nonprofits that are shells of other nonprofits that if you were to kind of connect all of them, go back to very just sinister billionaires is basically what we're saying. Yeah,
totally. I mean, these like foundations and like I feel like every big police department or medium police department has them, or even small police department has them. And it's also just like a way for corporations to just give money to the cops.
Yeah. They also, I mean, as just like a public facing thing, they've written op-eds in the Atlanta Journal-Constitution like over and over. There was one that was like the sometimes messy but inexorable march to public safety. And my understanding with Atlanta is that the kind of north neighborhoods, I believe it's the north neighborhoods, are very wealthy. So much so that they have been petitioning to like be removed from the city, basically.
I remember reading something about that a while ago.
Yeah, that they're like kind of like, you got to let us, you know, secede, basically.
Well,
which is never something you want to hear from anyone in the South.
Listen, you guys are done seceding.
Yeah.
They should make you into one big state down there.
But the South is very different. The southern part of the city is then very different. And so the kind of reactions to this stuff and who wants this stuff and who is against the building of Cop City and who's more like, well, I'm just for like sensible law and order, aka more cops, more prisons, more money to these, you know, disgusting organizations. That's like in the north.
Yeah.
And in the wealthy middle class neighborhoods.
Something that I also have kind of read about a little bit and has been explained to me a little bit about sort of what's called the Atlanta Way, which is like there is a pretty like distinct political machine in that town as well that like sort of sees itself. And you know what? I got to be honest with you guys. Atlanta, love you. Love the Carbonas. But this is not unique to Atlanta. I feel like every major and medium city has this, and probably small city as well. Every city has this, which is like a group of like political leaders who maybe have some foundations, or you know, what are those clubs they always used to have? You know what I'm talking about.
Rotary clubs?
Not the fucking Rotary Club. It's like the financial thing. Why can't I remember this? I slept 2 hours last
Chamber
night.
of Commerce?
Chamber of goddamn Commerce type of people.
There's lots of those.
But like, it's like they sort of view themselves as like the people who sort of keep the peace and keep the town running, right?
Yeah,
and
order.
that's a big part of this as well.
Yeah.
It should be noted too that one of the people or one of the organizations involved with Cop City and with the Atlanta Police Foundation is Cox Enterprises.
Yeah.
Too, which is you'll never catch me fucking naming my company that. That's crazy.
Yeah. They also own the Atlanta Journal-Constitution.
Yes. So they own the local newspaper there.
Yes.
Not always expressed when running stories about Cop City or
No.
op-eds about Cop City. Sometimes they do. Sometimes they do not. And they also now own, what is this? Axios, Liz?
Yeah, they own Axios.
Who is Axios for?
I don't know. It's for people who are like, just give me the headlines.
It's just the headline. No, you know what?
But then also they have a show on HBO, I think. Or they
used to. That one British fella, or maybe he's Australian. But I will say Axios isn't just the headlines. It's also the headlines and then the subheader. That's all Axios stories are just series of subheaders. Yeah, I'm not sure who that's for. Anyways, cut to December, about a month ago, right? Mm-hmm. And the police start giving press conferences and putting out statements describing a whole host of really insane activities that they're saying that the forest dwellers are getting up to. So as something that I have been, in my independent investigations have found is that a lot of what the forest dwellers were getting up to is they were living in the forest and, they were having like preschool teachers come out and like bring kids around and like they were kind of just like living there. And then when cops would come in, they would hide, or if the cops came in with contractors, they would attack the cops. But not really doing much outside of the forest there. The police are like, they're burning down people's houses. They're breaking into cars. They're essentially what they're doing is they're laying the foundation to paint this as a criminal conspiracy of domestic terrorism, right? And so
Yeah.
they're actually like they're being smart right there because they're trying to paint this in the public eye as being like these are crazy motherfuckers out in the woods right here who will burn down your house because they love trees.
Right.
Mid-December, they raid the camp and arrest 5 people and charge them with domestic terrorism. That's pretty major.
Yeah, those are big charges.
Big charges. That I would say was probably to scare people into leaving the camp.
Right, sure.
You know what I mean? Like that would separate like sort of anybody who's like, well, I don't know if I really want to get arrested for domestic terrorism into splitting. And then cut to last week and the raid where the police shot Tortugita. And now they have basically cleared many people out of the forest, although there are still people living there, sort of definitely the more like hardcore, very militant people that are living there. And they also released a list of weapons that they confiscated from the forest, which are absurd. Multi-edged weapons, kerosene, gas masks, etc. And the lawyers involved in this on the forest people's side were able to find out that multi-edged weapon did not, in fact, mean shuriken or ninja star, but meant scissors and kerosene, which you would expect. Sort of the expectation there is they're building explosives or they have gas to let people's house on fire. That was a camp stove. And so here we are. There's still been no ground broken really on Cop City, but it is. They are planning on putting this state-of-the-art $90 million training center right in these urban woods.
Well, let's talk about what this place is because we've been kind of talking around it, right? It's basically a fake city.
Oh, yeah.
Like you said, kind of like like a Google campus.
Like a Google campus.
For cops. So $90 million project, 85-acre center. Mentioned the mock city. There's a firing range. There's, an explosive facility. And then, of course, the Cop Academy, the Institute for Social Justice. To kind of compare just a little bit, the NYPD Training Academy is 32-acre campus, and the LAPD is about 20 acres. So this is significantly larger.
Yeah.
So much larger that I think it is worth asking what the fuck is going on there.
Well, I will say one of the reasons that they said that Mayor Kesha Lance Bottoms has said, and since politicians have said, is that a big reason they're building this is for police morale.
What?
Yeah.
Why?
Do you remember all those hosts of I don't know.
Like for a Google thing, like they take the Google thing to heart and
Yeah.
they're like, you know what cops need? They need like
froyo,
They need like
ping pong.
Yeah, team building happy hours.
A day in my life as an Atlanta police officer. Wake up at 6:45 and have my Bloom greens. I don't know what else. I never watched those videos more than that.
I don't know anything. Yeah.
It's crazy though, because I do be waking up at 6:45 and have my Bloom greens.
When is that?
I don't know, but it looks like something that gives you diarrhea. I genuinely don't know though. So, obviously, they've got the firing ranges there, which, by the way, I'm no expert on this stuff, but like the Atlanta forest is like, again, like a pretty big green environment in this city, right? And Atlanta is like less hot. This is how it was explained to me, is like has more temperate temperatures than other parts of Georgia because of how much greenery is around it, which makes sense.
Yeah.
I gotta tell you, I don't know if having an outdoor shooting range is like really great for the environment out there. But it's one thing though is that like, and this is something that I have always kind of been into. I love reading about weird cop shit and training and all that kind of stuff because they get up to some really funky shit. The fake city aspect of it is really interesting to me because they're trying to play part of it off as firefighter training, and they are going to have a burn house like those big, like that one on the Mission. You guys ever see that one?
That's where firefighters go, and then they like run up the stairs and they like put out fires
Cheat
and
on their
they're training.
wives.
I'm just describing it for
No, that's where they
listeners
cheat
at
on their
home.
wives. I don't know if that's a thing about firefighters, but I'm assuming they do that. It
I
seems
don't
like
know.
the kind of guys who would. But they're also building like basically a fake city for the police to train in.
Yeah, a huge fake city that they could train in. Interestingly enough, I want to say the Atlantic Press Collective, which I give a shout out to them. They've been doing great work on all of this and on the history of the Atlanta Prison Farm, which is the site where a lot of this is going to take place, or a lot of Cop City is like going to be built.
Yeah.
They are saying that 40% of the cops to be trained at Cop City, they got their hands on some internal documents, are from out of state. So it's basically what they posit is that this center is going to function as a national and international training center.
Yeah.
Where, and this is a quote from them, law enforcement agencies from different states and possibly countries would develop and share violent policing tactics, the likes of which have most recently led to the deaths of Keenan Anderson, Tyree Nichols, and Manuel Tortugita Terran. And, there is a really robust history of U.S. cops kind of basically using centers in the States, but also then internationally to share and expand and test out policing activities before kind of bringing it home and training police elsewhere.
Yeah, absolutely. I know famously, actually, a lot of police go and train. I think we've actually covered this on the show before. Go and train in Israel. And one might wonder why American police are training in a country that is probably most famous for occupying a place, like classic barbed wire and electric machine guns attached to remote controllers. Occupation. It's basically because they're training them in counterinsurgency.
Yeah, absolutely. Stuart Schrader, he wrote this book called, that I was reading, Badges Without Borders.
Yeah.
He has a great quote in that where he says, across the globe, counterinsurgency was policing. At home, policing was counterinsurgency.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think in that book, he kind of traces a lot of what he calls the professionalization of the police, which comes out of a lot of the reforms from the Kerner Commission after the uprisings in Harlem and Detroit and Newark that like freaked the Johnson administration out.
Yeah.
He says that basically, or he just kind of gives this history of that the police, the American police basically were intent on professionalizing themselves.
Yeah.
And it's in that process that, all of these kind of police force recommendations, they get exported throughout the globe.
Yeah.
Basically be tested out in Nicaragua, in Brazil, in the Philippines. I mean, stuff that even we've talked about in episodes with Vince Bevins, for example.
Michael Judge, I think.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And a lot of this would take place at, institutes that were similar, very much in scope to what is being built and planned for in Cop City.
Yeah. So, famously, the 60s had a lot of pretty crazy riots. I think on a level above what we saw in 2020, right?
Yes, significantly.
Full-on shootouts and stuff. There was the myth sort of the sniper that was like always around. Like, there was the sort of police are really into, like all sort of soldiers, are really into mythologies, right? And like there was this mythology that arose in the 60s of the urban, mostly black, often Black Panther sniper, sort of sitting at in a crossroads waiting for the police to come by and they'd pick him off. This became a big thing. IRA actually did do that. I'm sure that this did happen a few times in the 1960s. But there were pretty big, like basically urban pitched battles between like the National Guard and police and then like residents of slums.
And a lot of the response to that was basically, shit, the National Guard and the military cannot be trusted with this kind of, they have no idea what the fuck they're doing, especially after Kent State, right?
Yeah.
We need to put this back in the hands of local police and train them more effectively. And that was the decision that got made under Johnson.
Yeah.
And it's in that process that the police then gets reformed into kind of the big, in the force that we know it is today, right?
Yeah. Like the semi-militarized force whose duties include what you would think of as traditional policing, but also essentially counterinsurgency, right?
Yeah, and the police themselves were really drivers of this.
Yeah.
So they were going to, the politicians and to the Johnson administration and to all of this and petitioning on behalf of their own organizations saying, we want this training. We want, we'll take more of a role in this, all of this. We are seeing what our quote unquote police forces that we're training overseas are doing. They're doing so well to manage the communist uprisings in, for example, Jakarta.
Yeah.
What if we were able to do that kind of training at home? And so there was like a back and forth between these both at home and abroad, right? Stuart Schrader, he puts it this way in the book, and I think this is a great way to understand it. Police in this situation were not passive recipients of demands from above, but actively made demands on lawmakers and fought political battles against the limits of their activities. They shifted the meaning of crime itself through reference to emergent forms of social and political protest. And that's kind of what we would understand as like the reification of crime, right?
Yeah.
How we understand crime then changes based on how it's being defined and redefined as new forms of social protest emerge.
Absolutely. And I think that again, something that really strikes me are these domestic terrorism charges against the people at Cop City, right? And it seems to really be okay, the police are way above their remit with this. You know what I mean? And I think that's a result essentially of that is something the FBI would be stringing you up on phony domestic terrorism charges even 20 years ago. And it seems pretty absurd and pretty, like a counterinsurgency tool that they're using here.
Absolutely. So one of those guys that Schrader points to as being a real shaper of how we understand professionalized policing to this day was a guy named Byron Engel, who was a CIA operative, we should say, and director of the Office of Public Safety. Great name.
Oh, yeah.
He had a great quote here. This is from Byron Engel. The communists have long experience in utilizing disturbances, riots, terrorism as political action tools. As a consequence, we have put a lot of emphasis on non-lethal riot control. We have found that there are many principles and concepts which apply, whether it is in Asia, Africa, or South America. Perhaps those same principles would apply in the United States. And I saw your little eyebrows raised when I said the Office of Public Safety, because the OPS is a really interesting organization.
Definitely.
That got shut down.
Yes.
Thanks to a lot of public protest. And I think it was the early 70s.
We've talked about them on
yeah.
the show before, or about the organization on the show before, but I can't remember in what context.
So the OPS basically assisted police forces in, at least that we know, 52 countries, and officers from 77 countries would come to attend its training academy, fully funded by USAID and the CIA.
Yeah.
And, we should talk a little bit about this academy. Basically, the beginning of the 50s, the CIA was training overseas, foreign police officers, in their own countries, on basically like on an ad hoc basis.
Yeah.
And by the mid 50s, the NSC starts calling for permanent police assistance, and so it starts to get institutionalized in DC. All this, there's a bunch of reorganization, whatever. It all basically comes under the aegis of our favorite. You know them, you love them, USAID.
We love USAID. Shout out
to our funders.
USAID.
Our funders and our founders.
You know
we
what?
love you.
You guys are great.
So they opened this thing called the International Police Academy, which is great
My
name.
alma mater. I graduated summa cum laude from that motherfucker.
That's in Washington, D.C. In 1963. OPS runs the entire place. They are out of this International Police Academy. They're training paramilitary forces in riot control. They're training counter guerrilla action. They're training in surveillance. And, officers from Honduras, Jakarta, Brazil, Vietnam, you name it, they're there.
So you could basically say this is like the policing version of something like the School of the Americas.
Absolutely. Yeah, 100%.
I just don't understand, because if they're teaching you the best way to tear out a guy's fingernails, couldn't they centralize into like one place?
They basically, they kind of did.
Yeah. Okay.
Right?
Yeah,
advisors were designing and testing universally applicable policing technologies overseas and then bringing them home.
Gotcha.
Some of this training included riot training, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And that starts to happen early on at Fort Belvoir and Fort Gordon, and it culminates in the building of this huge staging area called Riotsville, which is similar but smaller to what it looks like Cop City is going to be.
Yes. So I've seen the documentary,
Yeah, I haven't seen that.
Riotsville, USA.
I think it's on Netflix streaming.
I saw it in a movie theater.
That's crazy. You see so many more movies.
So
than
this
you
is
let
something
on.
that I
I'm
knew
sorry.
we couldn't get away from, no matter how this, because when I told you this, there was a pause, and then you were like, "You see a lot of movies."
No, because you said you saw the other movie yesterday.
What other movie?
Everywhere, Everything, All the Time, or whatever it's called.
First of all, pause. Second of all, I will say Riotsville, USA, significantly superior to that.
I'm just saying, I can't believe you saw that movie.
Yeah, I had nothing to do. It was like a Thursday. It was,
That's what I'm saying. You see a lot of movies.
That was like 8 months ago. That was probably we're not getting into this. Okay?
I just found out about this movie.
I Pee-wee Herman'd my way out of that movie theater.
All right.
I thought that movie was too hella random for me. I will say that. But
What?
it was Rick and Morty.
As someone who
for
doesn't
depressed
know
people.
anything about this movie, I have no idea what you're talking about.
Anyways. Yes, so I saw the movie, and I actually had known, I was interested in it because I knew I like going to see a documentary. I'm like, I know a thing or two about this. It's all archival footage. There's no talking heads or anything like that. It'll be really interesting to see. So I went and saw it. I did. The movie itself, I got to be honest with you, dragged for me in portions. It got a little too artsy.
But it's all archival footage,
It's all
right?
except for some of the artsy parts, but yes,
Yes.
it's all archival footage. I will say it was really fascinating because this is something that, like, if you pay attention at all to like how militaries train or how police train or anything like this, the fake city is a major component of that.
Yeah.
And that's something I got really into like a couple years ago of just looking up like these more insane like training bases that people were using, because some of them get really intense.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
Like they'll make like whole fake, villages and all that kind of stuff. And obviously every couple years there's some like racist photographs escape from this place of like, a 19-year-old white guy dressed as in like full hijab. The movie basically like shows how this place was built, and then it shows the actual demonstrations that they used during these things. Like they would have some soldiers play anti-Vietnam War protesters, and then they would have those soldiers essentially fight MPs or other soldiers. And I know other people use the facility, but there was only footage of American soldiers and
Right.
National Guard training on it, probably for various reasons that one can imagine. And they would have like full scale riots, and like, they would have the police, and it's sort of crazy footage to see, because it really looks like what you would see of like a military takeover, like full on military control of America, with like Jeeps lining up with like, young black guys and like who are soldiers, in handcuffs, and like putting them all back there, beating people into the back of trucks and stuff like that. It's really sort of like, jarring to see, and like it's this sort of ruthlessness, and it's these same techniques that these soldiers, if they were deployed to Vietnam, would use on Vietnamese people in cities or in farms and something like that. This sort of this domestic, or not, excuse me, at that point it would be international counterinsurgency program is what they were training for.
Yeah, and we should say that like counterinsurgency too is not just like physically fighting back, and that actually a ton of counterinsurgency training is focused on intelligence gathering.
Yes.
And identifying leaders of dissident groups and how like operational, like what their operational techniques are in terms of communication, and how to kind of figure out who's who and what's what. Like I think so much is kind of, at least, when you have in your head, like, okay, you've got a mock city, it's just the cops practicing how to brutalize people. And yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
But the flip side of that is also the more, I don't know how to like brain intensive work. That's not the right way to put it.
Work.
But the thinking cops work, where it's actually like trying to figure out how to either embed yourself or how to actually get in the protesters' heads or anticipate what kind of moves they're going to make before they make them. Yeah. And that's such a I just think that's such an important technology of the police to highlight, because it's often, it can be, if someone's good at that.
Oh, yeah.
Your days are numbered. So I gave them a shout out already, but I'm going to link to them in the notes. And I want to, again, give them a shout out, which is the Atlanta Press Collective, because they've been doing really good work on compiling a lot of histories and goings on of what's happening. Yeah. Both like, kind of the internal political inner workings and some of the organizations that are pulling the strings. And I just want to support the work they're doing.
Yeah, there's also the independent investigation is being done through ATL Solidarity, which is, I guess, a lawyers group, but it's atlsolidarity.org, and they're trying to get together an independent investigation into the shooting of Tortugita. But this is a developing story, right? So, like, by the time this episode comes out, other stuff may have happened as well.
Yeah, for sure.
And there is also a website, which I don't know if it's legal for us to link to, so I will not link to it, but I found it very amusing that did have the names of addresses of all the police who were involved in this sort of thing, and a cop of the week kind of thing about the repression of the forest. So that was interesting to see, you know, just as a journalist.
I don't know if we mentioned that they arrested 6 protesters this past weekend and hit them with domestic terrorism charges.
Yes, and something that should be said about that too is that prior to that, it had only been out-of-state people. charged with domestic terrorism. Locals were charged with different crimes. But it was a way for the police to say that all of these are out-of-state people, et cetera, et cetera. But there were 2 people from the Atlanta area, one from Atlanta proper, and then another arrestee who was from, can't remember what the city's called, but it's a city that's like Emeryville style, just completely surrounded by Atlanta. And they were being like, oh, they're not from Atlanta. It's like, oh.
I hate this out-of-state thing. It's such bullshit, first of all. Like, so what? This next whole month, we're supposed to celebrate the Freedom Rides, which was all out-of-state
people.
protesters.
Yeah,
but now, if anyone comes from out of state, it's all Antifa agitated. It's such corny bullshit. Just stop.
And remember, I will say this, remember too, all these fucking people are Democrats. You know? All these fucking politicians.
Anyway.
All right. Let's wrap this motherfucker up.
Yeah, stop Cop City.
Yeah. My name, Brace.
I'm Liz. We are, of course, as always, joined by producer Young Chomsky, and this has been TrueAnon. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Jeffrey Epstein. Jeffrey Epstein.